On today's Primus Academy, I thought we would stray a bit from just talking history to talk about some mythology. The story I wanted to tell today was the tragedy of Izanami and Izanagi from Shinto mythology, which is pretty much the beginning of the myths in Shintoism. Mythology is something that I think is just fascinating, and while I'll be starting our mythology talks with a sort of religion I'm familiar with, we will certainly branch out to other religions in a later date. So, without further ado, gather around everybody, because it's story time. At the beginning of time, there was nothing. Okay, except there were two things, the heaven and the earth. They sort of come pre-made in this mythology. In heaven, or rather Takama no Hara, there were already 3 divines, or kami. And once you have one set of divines, countless more are bound to sprout up. The 2 kami we really want to pay attention here are the siblings/lovers Izanagi and Izanami, because, of course, the beginning starts with a man and a woman. Izanagi and Izanami were given the task of creating land on Earth, so they went to Ame no Ukihashi, the bridge between heaven and earth, and wielded the magic spear Ame no Nuboko. They churned the waters of the earth. From their churning, they created the so-called self-forming island Onogoroshima. On this newly created island, the pair began to set up their new home. The 2 eventually decided to mate, but before doing this, they had to go through this ritual of walking around a pillar, the heavenly pillar Ame no Mihashira. They each walked around the pillar, and upon coming together at the other side, Izanami, the woman, spoke first, greeting her husband. Izanagi thought that was a bit out of place for her to do, but they made it anyway. Unfortunately, what resulted was Izanami giving birth to 2 deformed demon children that they stuck on a boat and just sent them drifting out to sea. The 2 relatively young kami asked the other kami in heaven about, what was that all about? Freaking demon children? That wasn't in the parenting manual. Apparently, they learned that Izanami shouldn't have spoken first since she was the woman. So the 2 decided to try again, walked around the pillar, met on the other side, and this time Izanagi spoke first before they mated. What resulted of their union were the Great 8 Islands: Awaji, Iyo, Ogi, Tsukushi, Iki, Tsushima, Sado, and Yamato. With that, the world was created. Now you might be saying, but Primus, those are 8 islands in Japan and not the whole world. And I'd say, yeah. After the Great 8 Islands, they made a few more islands, and then Izanami started giving birth to sentient life, and so a whole lot more kami were born. That lasted until Izanami gave birth to the Fire Kami, and giving birth to that kami killed her. Izanagi buried his wife on Mount Hiba, and was so distressed at the loss of his wife that he killed the Fire Kami, which just resulted in more kami being formed from the death of the Fire Kami. So, Izanagi was very distressed that he had lost his dearly beloved and beautiful wife, and ultimately came to the decision to literally go to hell and back for her. He traveled to Yomi no Kuni, the underworld, with the mission of bringing her back to the land of the living. Though the underworld was dark and Izanagi couldn't see very well, he eventually found his wife, who he asked to come back to Earth with him. Izanami, however, sadly told her husband that she had already eaten the food of the underworld, which meant that she would never be able to come back, and asked Izanagi to leave and that he shouldn't look at her. Izanagi refused to leave his wife behind and stayed by her side. Eventually, Izanami fell asleep, and Izanagi, wishing to see his beautiful wife again with his eyes, took a comb in his hair and lit it on fire to use as a torch. Unfortunately, he found that his wife was certainly in an undead state, her skin decaying and filled with maggots and other foul creatures, like some sort of monster. Izanagi yelped in shock and began to run away, waking up Izanami, who was furious that Izanagi had seen her in her undead state. Izanami chased Izanagi, and also sent the lightning kami Raijin and the undead hag Shikome after Izanagi. No matter what, Izanagi had to be captured and forced to stay in the underworld. However, Izanagi finally reached the end of the cavern that brought him out of the underworld, shoving a boulder at the mouth of the cave just in time before Izanami arrived behind it. Screaming from behind the boulder, Izanami swore to kill 1,000 people created by Izanagi, every day if he left her, and Izanagi, heartbroken and horrified that his wife he had loved for so long had turned into the goddess of the underworld, could only reply that he would then make 1,500 people every day. And so, Izanagi worked on creating the human race, with the vengeful goddess of death in a constant struggle against him. I particularly like this myth from Shinto just because of the pure emotion in it. Sure, so many religions start with a man and a woman being the creators of mankind and something happens that results in their fall. However, the twist here is that the wife becomes evil, and that's what I really like here. The other religious myth I'm best acquainted with is Christianity, and this is kind of like the equivalent of if Eve, the wife of Adam, ended up becoming the ruler of hell in place of a devil character, and I think that just adds a lot of good story element to the myth. After leaving the underworld, the distressed Izanagi underwent a cleansing ritual to purify himself from his excursion into the underworld, taking a bath in Ahakigahara. Stripping his own clothes and accessories ended up becoming kami. You know, it seems so easy for a kami to be made. They literally exist at the beginning of time, more of them are made, 2 kami mate and more of them are made, 1 kami is killed, and yet somehow there is a net gain of the kami population. You take off your clothes, you make a kami. When Izanagi loses his impurities, kami are made. When he loses any curses that were put on him simply by entering the underworld, kami are made. When he washes the lower parts of his body, kami are made. When he washes the middle parts of his body, kami are made. When he washes the upper parts of his body, kami are made. However, 3 more kami are made when he washes his face, and 2 of them will end up being pretty important if I get around to the next myth I want to do. When Izanagi washed his left eye, out of that came the kami Amaterasu, kami of the sun. When he washed his right eye, Tsukiyomi, kami of the moon, was born. And when he washed his nose, Suzano, kami of storms, was born. These 3 kami were considered the 3 precious children of Izanagi, and Izanagi gave Amaterasu the right to rule over heaven, Tsukiyomi was given the right to rule over night, and Suzano was given the right to rule over the seas. These 3 kami would be leaders of the next generation of kami to come. So that concludes our video here on the creation myth in Shinto mythology, and the tragedy of Izanagi and Izanami. I hope you enjoyed it. So the question is, Primus, you said once upon a time that you were going to make 3 Primus Academy videos. After making those 3 videos, you would gauge how well the videos were received and how much fun you had making them. And if you decided you liked making them, and if they were received well, you would devote a channel to Primus Academy. Well, here we are at the 3rd video, and I have made my decision. I have decided to continue the Primus Academy series on a kinda new channel called Primus Academy. I will probably already have these 3 Primus Academy videos re-uploaded there already. This technically isn't a new channel because it's just my old side channel Primus Prime that I renamed and reworked into Primus Academy, so if you are already subscribed to Primus Prime, then you should be subscribed to Primus Academy. However, if you have not yet subscribed, the link to the new Primus Academy channel is in the description, so make sure you go over there and check us out. Thank you guys so much for supporting this new series, it means a lot. See you guys next time with normal videos on Primus Prime 22 and Primus Academy videos on Primus Academy.